Have you ever looked at your tube screamer and gone, man, I like this pedal, but I really wish I could get a little bit more bass out of it? Well, do I have the used $60 to $50 pedal for you, the Electro Harmonix Crayon Full Range Overdrive. Now, Electro Harmonix did not release the Crayon as a new circuit, or a new idea even. In fact, this pedal is roughly based on the Exotic BB preamp, which is a tube screamer style pedal that has a bass knob somewhere in the circuit. It feels like it's at the beginning of the circuit, but I could be wrong. It might be somewhere else in the circuit. That allows you to control the amount of bass and push it, cut the bass really hard and make it sound even thinner than a tube screamer, or really push up that bass and make it sound much more full range than a tube screamer could ever dream of doing. Additionally, this pedal has a big gain range, which is really pleasant. And so by opening up that tone stack to a 2-knob configuration instead of 1 knob, you can have the best of both worlds. You can have that tube screamer style clipping. You can make it sound like a tube screamer by putting the bass knob. To me, the bass knob sounds kind of like a tube screamer when it's when it's at noon. But then as you increase it, it starts to sound more full range, kind of in this region, depending on the guitar and the amp, and it gets really fat up here. So the tone control, the bass control is really powerful, and then as you decrease, it feels like it's cutting quite a bit as you go down. And the treble knob kind of works somewhat similarly to the Tube Screamer's tone knob, but it really focuses on the high frequencies. It doesn't mess with the low frequencies so much. There's a plentiful volume on tap, so as you move, unity gain is, I think, somewhere in here. As you push it up, it can quite easily boost your amp or another pedal. And the gain range is pretty flexible. There's quite a lot of saturation at the high end, and you can go pretty much clean over here. The thing I don't like about the gain knob is the taper. So really from about here to here, you're getting into crunch territory, but it goes from clean, slightly dirty, and then, it's starting to get saturated right about noon. So I do find it a bit hard. It's a bit touchy to dial in. But really, I was able to get some fantastic tones out of it And I've had this pedal for a couple of years now, and it's kind of my auxiliary overdrive that I use. And it's nice to have because, you know, it really can replace like a blues breaker style pedal if you need. The clipping is more is a bit more sandy. It's tube screamer like, of course, because it's based on that circuit. But it can get you into that kind of a little bit more kind of transparent overdrive, but like transparent, like flat frequency response overdrive, but with a tube screamer twist to it. So that can be kind of nice for the people who are looking for that. And additionally, you can use it as a boost. You can cut that bass. You can really do that mid-forward thing that tube screamers are known for. So I find this pedal really fascinating and really nice to have. And I think a lot of people would do good to check it out and see if this pedal is right for you, because I think it really could work for a lot of people. And if you're looking for your first overdrive, I can't recommend this highly enough. I mean, you get bass and treble, which is fantastic. You can do so much with just bass and treble, and a big gain range. It sounds great. If you play jazz, blues, rock, even heavier music, you can use this to kind of shape the tone of a different distortion pedal or your amp placed after it. So it can really work well for that. Okay, so this pedal retails for $77.10 new on sweetwater.com right now. And you can also find it used. I'm seeing the lowest price on Reverb at just $50. And that's a pretty good deal for something that apes the sound of a pedal that costs about $100 more than this pedal. Obviously, the build quality is going to be slightly not as good with this versus the exotic pedal. But this pedal has lasted 2 years. It's been on and off my pedal board for maybe it's longer than that. I think it's been like 3 or 3.5 years actually. And I've loved using it as like a solo boost. You can use this to approximate the tube screamer without the tube screamer bulk. So one advantage of this pedal, like the other pedals in Electro Harmonix Nano series, is that they have the nano-sized case. Now it isn't like a mini pedal, or maybe what people think of when they think of mini pedals, but it is smaller than your traditional enclosure for a compact pedal. So for instance, here is the Walrus 385 by Walrus Audio, or the 385 by Walrus Audio. It's a pretty normal size case. And then here's the Electro Harmonix Crayon. So you can see it's a bit shorter in terms of, its like length, but also it's quite a bit thinner. You can see that case is quite a bit smaller, so it sits flatter on your pedal board, which makes it easier to reach pedals that are behind. And then in terms of width, let's see if I can do this on camera. It's slightly narrower, so you can fit more pedals next to it. Now, I don't think this pedal can accept a battery. I'll have to cut this out if it doesn't. But yeah, let me quickly cover some of the other basic stuff on here. We have a traditional latching foot switch. And then we have metal input and output jacks on either side. So they're not top mounted. They are metal and mounted on the sides. And then we have a top mounted jack for the 9-volt DC power supply that's connected directly to the PCB. It's not connected to the case in any way. And then to take off the bottom, there are 4 screws, and then you can get inside the case and have a look at all the components. The knobs are the traditional Electro Harmonix knobs, the like black ones. I personally don't love these knobs, not because of their look so much, but because the labels are really small and it's hard to read at a glance. So if you're looking at it from far away, it may be hard to see if it's on the floor. Okay, what are your settings? But I guess that's fine. It's not just kind of a minor complaint. And I have noticed that the stuff comes off the knobs a bit easy, the markers. So I give it really high marks in terms of pedal board ability. I think it fits well on many pedal boards and gives you a lot of space relative to other pedals that take up more space. Here's a Boss pedal for comparison. So this is a Taiwanese, I think it's Taiwanese made, Boss BF2 flanger that I'm borrowing from my friend Daniel, who's borrowing it from someone else. Thanks, Daniel. I need to give this back to you probably. But this thing is awesome. I love this pedal. It's a traditional compact boss pedal. Compact boss pedals seem compact, but there are actually a lot of pedals that are pretty small. And so when you look at the Crayon compared to it, you start to see that, you know, when you take into account the screw that's at the bottom, so I'm lining them roughly like this, you can see that there's quite a bit of space up top, you know, at least a centimeter or two, you know, maybe an inch of space up there. And then in terms of thickness, right, now I have flipped it over, but it's still roughly the same thickness. You can see that the boss pedal loses by a pretty good amount, although it's, you know, it's not that much taller. So if space is tight, you might want to consider this. Now, I don't know, I've never owned the Exotic BB preamp, so I couldn't really tell you if this is smaller than that pedal. But it is smaller than other compact pedals without being like the micro pedal size, which I personally don't love unless it's a tuner or a compressor, because then they tend to fall over more easily when they're on your pedal board, unless you have, even with dual lock, I find my compressor comes off really easy. Inside the Electro Harmonix Crayon, here is a gut shot. You can see that even though this pedal is tiny, there is still room for a 9-volt battery. However, it's difficult to access during a gig if your battery dies, because you need to bring a screwdriver with you, undo the 4 non-captive machine screws, which look like this right here, very small, yes. Remove the back and then put the 9-volt, replace the battery, or put one in there. So it's better to just use a power supply. Power supplies really aren't that expensive. Here's the back, it's die cast and then painted. So it's just a simple metal back plate. It only goes on one way because it has the little nub for the power jack, as you can see right there. So we have surface mount components. Now, some people like to talk about how surface mount components are bad, how they're terrible. Guess what? Your laptop is full of surface mount components. It's not a bad thing, they're just smaller. So we have small surface mount components, so the capacitors and the resistors, when they can be, are very, very small and are surface mounted. There are 5 larger capacitors that you can see. There's the blue ones here that stick up quite a bit, and then there's an orange one down in there next to the foot switch that is through hole mounted. The potentiometers are also through hole mounted. You can see the joints there. The 9-volt jack, I'm not sure if it's through hole or surface mounted. I would assume it's through hole since it's a big component and since you structurally have to, mechanically support it because you're going to be applying a force to this jack. So Electro Harmonix would be kind of silly to put it on a surface mount. I don't think it would hold up very well. So I'm assuming that's through hole, hopefully. There are a couple of ICs. I think the 44558 is kind of the tube screamer chip. It's kind of the famous one. There's a couple of larger diodes in here as well. Diodes 3 and 4. I'll have to do a big zoom in the post. That I'm assuming are doing kind of the clipping, and then there's a couple of other ones over by the power jack. The solder joints appear to be in good condition, and nothing appears to be botched. So the manufacturing that they're doing, whoever is doing the manufacturing, is doing a good job. So this is the Electro Harmonix, and the code for the PCB is EC-D137 revision A. So I guess they did one revision of this and thought that it was good. But that's the internals of the pedal. Hopefully that interests you to some degree. So here we go. There it is. The components seem to be of reasonable quality, and it doesn't appear to be ultra cheap. Okay, quick wrap up. Let's wrap this up. Pros and cons. Pros, this pedal is really small. It's well built, reasonably so. The markers on the knobs I know are going to come off if I keep using this pedal at some point, but they've stayed on for now, so that's fine with me. The foot switch, you need to take care of these foot switches. You get some electronics cleaner because eventually they get gunk in them and dust and other stuff, and then they start crapping out a little bit. So make sure you maintain your foot switches. So, but overall, I don't think they're generally pretty reliable. The jacks look nice. They're metal, and they have metal nuts and washers holding them to the case, which is good to see. The power jack is probably not the most secure type because it's mounted directly to the PCB, but it wouldn't be that hard of a fix because I'm pretty sure it's through hole. I've opened this pedal up before. I really like the range of tones in this pedal. It has a big gain range, big EQ range, big volume range, so that's very good. A very good thing about it. I think the aesthetics are fine in terms of the way that a pedal looks. It's not like as clean as the JHS Crayon, which I think is a very clean looking pedal. But Electro Harmonics tend to go with a bit more graphics approach, a graphics heavy approach, opposed to like the more simplistic approach of like JHS or some of these other companies. There's also another version, colorway of this pedal that was released that has a bit of a different look to it. It's a bit darker. I think it's called the Crayon 69 instead of this one, so they have a slightly different name, but they're essentially the same pedal. In terms of kind of refinement, I find the gain knob a bit hard to modulate. It kind of goes from clean, crunched, and then fully saturated really fast. So that's one complaint. I would change the taper of the knob, maybe change it to if it's a log pot, change it to linear, and if it's linear, change it to log. That's what I would do if I was designing this, if I was Electro Harmonics. That way it would give me a more even sweep, through the range, and I wouldn't have to worry about, it'd be easier to dial in. The build quality is great. It's built like a tank. I think this thing could survive getting thrown and, falling out of a car on the freeway and maybe getting run over by a car or two. I don't know, maybe stuff would start breaking off. Probably the knot pots would start breaking. So yeah, there's really not much to complain about this pedal, really, for $77 or $50 if you get it used like I did. I got this one for $62 a few years ago. It's really a great deal, and it sounds fantastic. So I think if you're looking for your first overdrive pedal, or your second or your third, or maybe even if it's your 20th overdrive pedal, you should really strongly consider the Electro Harmonix Crayon or the Exotic BB preamp upon which this is based, and give it a try, because I think you might find that it's a very versatile, useful overdrive that can really do a lot of things. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Zachariah Connor. You've been wonderful. Please give this video a like, drop a comment, and subscribe if that is something that you'd like to do. And if not, no worries. Have a great day, and I hope that you enjoy just playing your guitar and using your gear. Bye.